Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them.
Hello, wonderful weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and today's guest is Lex Mandrake, or you might know him also as Dank. He is an RPG content creator. He also a game designer. He's the creator of AZAG, the Weird Sword and Sorcery role-playing game. Also creator of 5B, the 5th edition compatible OSR style RPG, and he has been recently working with the Dungeon tuber Jorphdan to create videos highlighting indie RPGs on Jorphdan's Jocular Junction on YouTube channel, and we'll talk more about it a little bit. But before, I have a few announcements. I will be on Game On Expo from 15th to 17th on March this month on Phoenix, Arizona. I'll also be on GaryCon on March on 23rd, 25th. Also, if you like the show, please subscribe wherever you listen to the show. Leave us a review, share with your friends, and if you'd like to support the show, there is links on the show notes on how you can support the show, buy out a coffee at Ko-Fi. But talking more about Lex Mandrake, we started a little bit late because we had some audio problems, and we talked about how the gear that Lex had that kind of got in our way because it was so complex that the simplicity of my recording system wasn't compatible. So we talked about music, how he works with soundscapes. We talked about how that influenced his work and how this weird conversation about music and RPGs, and we even talked about comedy and RPGs, how he likes really influenced by the 80s aesthetic, the influence how he sees his work, and how he's been working on his new project for Ghostbuster style RPG that he was kickstarting, and it was a really fun chat. I hope you enjoyed as much as we did. So let's get weird with Lex Mandrake. Hello, Lex Mandrake. Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. I'm so happy to have you here. I mean, I remember hanging you at Gen Con. We had a really great time, and we worked together. And really super glad to have you here and talk about your work, your life, everything that you do. So how are you, my friend?
Wow, I'm great. Audio problems aside, I'm doing pretty well. We're starting, a half an hour later than we were originally going to, because I just couldn't get audio stuff to work right. And it was definitely a problem on my end. StreamYard didn't like me, but I'm glad we finally got it working. Other than that, I'm having a great, chill Sunday. It's nice. How are you doing, Diogo?
I'm doing fine. I spent a great morning with my kids. We played with some toys. We played some video game too. But I got to spend some time hanging outside of streams, which is always like my fight. And then he went to his grandma, and we hang out some with my wife. And now we're seeing one of my favorite people, a fellow creator. So I'm doing great.
Oh, thanks. That's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
mentioned Gen Con earlier, and yeah, it was so awesome getting to meet you in person at Gen Con because we had worked together
oh
before. We
yeah,
talked a lot in the past, but yeah, getting to hang out in person was really, really cool.
yeah. That's why I go to those things, to meet people, and that's basically what the podcast is. It's like I went to Gen Con and I had so much fun hanging out with you, with everybody that was there, and I said I have to find a way to keep doing that, and that's what the podcast is, I guess.
Totally.
And talking about audio problems you had, and I was talking to you, we record using StreamYard. I'm not even receiving anything because it's not gonna be talking good or bad. It's kind of to be simple because it's a browser, but because you have such a kind of like a pro setup and everything is plugged, StreamYard isn't compatible with maybe really pro things, and it was really hard for us to getting things set up and we could hear ourselves because sometimes I was hearing him and then he wasn't hearing me, or hearing way too much audio at the same time. But yeah, we figured it out. We are here, ready to be weird.
If you want to
So
actually
like,
start
yeah.
off, hey, do you want to hear the setup that I have in this room? You can kind of see some of it, right?
Oh
From
yeah, and there's lots of wires. If you're just
yeah,
hearing this, there's like when he got up to try to figure out the microphone, it's like lots of wires, and I don't know.
there's so
Yeah,
much junk in
maybe
this room.
that's might be a fire hazard or something. I don't know.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, there's a clear path to walk to the door, and otherwise this room is just full of junk. But the I've got three computers set up in this room on my computer desk. They're all wired
Wow.
into three monitors, and they all make use of all three of them, and I just change the monitor inputs, right? So then I also have three keyboards, I have three mice. Sometimes that gets confusing. And then I have a four-channel USB audio mixer. I also have a Focusrite
Wow.
USB preamp. I have a master USB keyboard. Then I also have one, two, three, four, five, six
There's lights too,
synthesizers.
right?
Yeah, there's some lights, six synthesizers, and right back there, which is actually not hooked into anything because I want to hook it into some stuff later, is a video mixer that I got.
Wow.
And I have a couple of video cameras that are off to this side of me that I want to experiment with that. Oh, and a CRT video monitor as well, which is on another table. So it's just madness. There's
That's cool.
wires
That
everywhere.
sounds cool. You can almost do like Bo Burnham, like record everything and do audio and edit and everything else all in that room. Like everything is there, you know.
It's all
And
there.
and in my mind, I picture those scenes in movies that there is this person playing chess with 20 people at the same time going to one table to the other, and you're going doing something on a computer and then the other and then the other, and just keep circling.
Yeah.
Doing completely different things on each one of them. Yeah. So Lex, for the weirdos out there who might not know who you are and what it is that you do, and I love to hear from the person that come here instead of reading a bio. So who is Lex Mandrake, and what is that you do? And if you can share just a small weird detail about yourself, maybe some habits or the way you do things a little bit differently.
Mm. A little bit differently. The technological mess in my room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Lex. That's my pen name. I also sort of write under the sort of company moniker of Dank Dungeons, even though I don't think that's an official company, so that's not exactly the right thing to call it. But I create TTRPG content. So in the past, I have created live streams. I have written several games and game supplements. I have written multiple game soundtrack albums for playing while you're playing. And I think, oh, and I've been starting calling myself a dungeon tuber because there's a video online where this guy was comparing all these YouTubers who do D&D content. They're the
That's a
thumbnails for their
great name.
videos.
That's fantastic
Yeah,
name.
he called us dungeon tubers, and I was like, wait, that's so good.
Yeah.
And he was discussing some of the thumbnails that I have for videos that I make with Jordan. The PH is silent on YouTube. We have a channel called Jordan's Jocular Junction, and we over the past year have been doing a lot of uh, RPG game read-throughs and reviews and some actual play stuff.
Yeah, I played recently one with both of you and Jen, and we played Doom of Savage Kings, which is one of my favorite adventures for DCC RPG. It's one that I love running to, and it's always different. So I love it. It's a Harley solo adventure, and Harley is one of my favorite adventure riders, and it was a great time. Thanks for having me there.
Oh yeah, thanks for being there. You can't go wrong with Harley Stroh's work. You can't go wrong with you
Yeah.
as a player, or really any of that cast. They were all fantastic. I'm glad that you were
I
doing some
I
actual
wasn't
stuff
so
with
good.
Jen.
I wasn't so good.
No.
I confess that I got distracted. I have a really hard time playing online browsers. I was better at Fiasco. Fiasco, I really but I'm getting better to be, a better player online because it's so easy to just, I have to look this up and then I'm somewhere else. It's terrible.
No, I thought your ex tax collector Harum, that was his name, right?
Yeah.
Great. It was a great character.
I start well. I get worse as it goes. I start because I start focused because it's my intention to be focused. I start well. I make some jokes. I create something, and the good thing is like the first impression is what sticks, right? So people think, he's really. I'm not so good, but I start well. That's that's my strength, I guess.
There you go. So I'm sorry. I was introducing myself. I was gonna say a weird thing
Yeah.
about myself. Was there something in between those two topics I was supposed to cover that I've forgotten?
No, it's who you are, what is that you do,
Yep.
and some weird detail. Yeah.
Okay, so the weird thing, which I have, yeah, I think I'm going to choose this as my topic. I precursed it earlier talking about my wild setup, but I'm really into vintage technology. I like to play music, as I said, so I have a lot of older synthesizers that I love. And I also have like my old video mixer that's all mostly analog, I think, and my older like CRT TVs and all that stuff because I work my day job. I work in audiovisual technology. Now, we don't use technology that old at my day job. Please don't think I'm that bad at doing audio video technology. I'm using LCDs and HDMI cables there. But one of the things that gives me access to is our junk and the stuff we're throwing out. And a lot of it like still works. So my boss will be like, "Hey, we're, taking apart this room and it has all this old stuff in it. So we're just going to put that in the recycling. But if that was going to disappear from the recycling, no one would notice. No one
Yeah.
would mind." I'm like, "Oh, I will take that then." So my my house has a lot of AV
Nice.
stuff in it that I like to play around with.
Yeah, and may experiment with, maybe use it for not necessarily what was intended to, and do. Yeah, right. That's great. And yeah, I
I
was gonna
create
ask you too about who are you also outside of the tabletop RPG space, and we can start talking about your work. Like, what did you do with audio and video technology? Are you
I am at a university, so I am managing the setups in the classrooms. So when you've got like the projector that the teacher is using to show, their PowerPoint or whatever to the class, and that's usually hooked into a computer, and there's also often like a document camera so they can have physical documents that they can project, or I don't know, any myriad other things that happen in the classroom, but I manage that equipment and make sure that it's all working. And when it gets old, I oversee like the installs of new stuff. And then the other half of my job is I do live event support. So if there is, I mean, the most common thing we do is someone is giving a presentation to an audience and they just need a couple microphones. So basic
yeah?
audio mixing, I do that a lot. Yeah, you'd think I'd be better at it from how long it took us to get this audio stuff working, but no.
Well, it's a new thing. Like, StreamYard is new for you, so yeah.
No, for sure. We
Yeah.
so we also do like hybrid event stuff. So I will often run video mixing for like if a Zoom meeting is being broadcast to the campus or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll have like a multi-camera shoot. We have these great PTZ cameras where you can control them remotely and you can like, line up different shots and stuff. You can make presets. So I'll like be controlling those on one computer and then I'll go to the video mixer and be like switching between cameras and I'll go to the audio mixer and make sure audio's good and like mix in background music and stuff like that. The last one of those we did, I was like, figured out how to do picture in picture on the video mixer. So in the Zoom meeting, I was like, yes, during the presentation that the president's doing, I can have their talking head come up in the corner of the screen while they're doing the presentation. This is so cool.
Yeah.
I was
It
very
is. It
excited
is.
about
Yeah.
that.
Nice. And who are you, like, outside of work and RPGs? What did you do, like, in your just to pass time? What do you enjoy doing outside of making? Because it's kind of both work, right?
Mm. Yeah, I do like hanging out with my friends and playing games in a not games that I'm working on when I'm not playtesting,
Yeah.
like a nice board game or what have you. I'm really into watching different B movies. One of my really good friends, who I've known since college, and we live very far apart now, but
Yeah.
I see her, I think, like every week. We get together on Zoom and we just pick something like weird to watch and we watch it. So this past week we were
Nice.
like
You
thinking
watch
of
together
watching.
on Zoom, or you watch
Yeah,
before and you?
yep.
Oh, okay.
Well, she has Plex, which I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a platform where you can upload your own movie files, and you can also, if different people have an account on it, you can watch something together that's on your Plex
Oh, okay.
server,
Like
right?
a watch parties kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, totally. So you can do it with that. We in the past we have also just done screen sharing over Zoom, but that's not always the best because there's some
Yeah.
lagging when you do that and like dropped frames. But yeah, so we've watched all sorts of stuff. We recently watched Time Bandits. That was great. And we got really into 80s Hong Kong comedy horror martial arts
Wow.
movies. And they're so good. They're like the Mr. Vampire series. So there's a lot of them revolve around hopping vampires because I guess in like the early to mid 80s Mr. Vampire came out in that country and it did really well. So it spawned basically the whole genre. So like 5 sequels to Mr. Vampire and then lots and lots of spin-offs like Ghost Snatchers or Vampire versus Vampire, Ultimate Vampire, Encounters of the Spooky Kind, all this stuff. So
Wow.
yeah, like a year or two ago, we discovered the genre and we just started watching them. We've watched so many of them and they're all amazing. I strongly recommend that people try and find these, especially if you're cool with watching movies that have subtitle tracks, which everyone
Yeah.
should be because there's so many good foreign films that you should watch. But yeah, those are
Yeah.
so much fun, so much fun. So yeah, that's one of the weird things I do on a regular basis.
That's great. Yeah. Uh, you see, you learn different kind of stories and ways to do things and explore different kinds of art. I think it's very healthy for any kind of creator. Like you do music, you write, and and work with audio music. Maybe you could make a game inspired by movies, or maybe a game using movies. Some days it's something uh, that we always feeding on those things in a way. Like we do it. I don't know. I don't know if it's unhealthy. Maybe I should try to plug off sometimes. Even when like we're doing those things that we are not. It's not game related, but it always feed into it in a way. Like we're talking about dreams with my wife yesterday, and just out of the blue, like, oh, I have an idea for a game using this, and that, and then I had to write
Yeah.
this down, and like you're always thinking about this, and not always thinking about this, but when something comes up, it just clicks, like, oh, this could be a game, right? I don't know.
There's that file cabinet in the back of your head, and when you're
Yeah,
watching
it's
a movie
running in
or
the
doing
background, I
something,
guess.
yeah, you see a little piece, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna file this away for something later because I like this idea. I'd like to think
Yeah.
of it that way. That's fun. Also, I want to say something. I have a strong hot take opinion right now, and you mentioned
Okay.
dreams, so it made me think of it. I always
Awesome.
hear from people. I always hear from people. I think I just heard this on Between Two Cairns. They were talking about it, but I always hear that nobody likes hearing about other people's dreams. You love talking about your own dreams, but other people don't care about hearing your own dreams. And I am 100% against that. I love hearing about people's dreams. I think they're fascinating. Whenever someone
Yeah.
wants to tell me about their dream, I'm always excited to hear about it. I find that stuff so cool because it gives you this weird insight into that person's psyche when they tell
Yeah.
you about what they dream about. So, yes, my firm hot take stance is I love hearing about other people's dreams. Please on social media at Dank Dungeons at me with your dreams. I would love to hear about them.
Well, yeah. But it started with content warning if you're sending stuff to people too. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
Usually, there's
That's
sometimes.
probably a good advice to
Mhm.
because dreams can go anywhere, right?
Yes,
Uh, yeah.
they can
So
get they can get very scary. They can get very inappropriate, but yeah, they're
yeah.
always super interesting. So that's
Do you
that's my stance on it.
do you remember your dreams a lot?
You know,
Or
I used to be able to lucid dream. I don't do that as much anymore. I used to remember my dreams a lot better when I was doing that. When I was young, like when I was a little kid, like in grade school, I had constant nightmares just all the time. And I still have memories of those, which I do not enjoy. Those were really bad. And then at some point when I guess like past puberty or something, I just kind of didn't dream as much and I didn't have nightmares, so I was happy about that. And then when I was like around college age, I got more into figuring out how to lucid dream. I also figured out, and this was something I did when I was a little kid, but I figured out how to wake myself up when I'm dreaming, which is really just as simple as opening your eyes, but opening your eyes as hard as you possibly can. When you're in the dream, and that forces your eyes to open in real life if you like
wow.
really like scrunch your face up, at least for me, when I would like
Yeah,
really
yeah.
scrunch my face
I
up
think
and then
each
open my eyes
person
really hard. Yeah.
creates a technique for this. Like my
Hmm.
kid has nightmares too, and for his strategy is he realized that, and he imagined he has like this armor like Iron Man and has
Ooh, nice.
dragons and stuff, and he just blows everything up.
Well, that's great because that's more like lucid dreaming, right? Where
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you figure out how to take control of the dream and like
yeah, yeah.
manipulate it, which is another great way of dealing with nightmares. Not something I thought of when I was little,
Yeah.
but yeah, when I was
He
older, I
says
figured out,
that he says that he prefers nightmares because he realizes it's a dream and he can control it.
oh
But
yeah.
normal dreams, he doesn't know and he's just is taken by it.
Mm.
Yeah.
But these days, I don't lucid dream as much, and I actually just dream a lot less. I think it's because I just don't sleep as well anymore, so I end up being like, oh, I better take some Z-Quil or something. And whenever I'm like taking medicine to help me sleep, it just knocks
Yeah.
me out and I don't dream in those circumstances. But when I do dream these days, I have like stress dreams, and that's no fun. Like it's not as bad as nightmares, I guess, but it's still not pleasant.
Like what? What is a stress dream for you?
A stress dream would be something like you're I'm back in school and I have, it's the
Yeah.
end of the
I had
semester and I
those.
realized that I have missed all my classes. I have no idea what's going on. I'm about to fail. That's a thing that I certainly have.
Yeah.
I also
But nowadays, I this was a problem. But nowadays, I have these dreams. I'm like, oh, I have to make this test. And wait, I have a job. I work at a. I what am I doing here? Doesn't that happen to you? Like, what the hell? I have a job. I have a kid. Why am I just?
this is not important to me anymore. No,
Uh,
you'd think that it would, but it doesn't. And again, when I used to lucid dream more when I was like in my early 20s,
yeah,
I could get into that mindset. But for some reason these days I like can't anymore. I
yeah,
don't know why. But yeah, and then I have like very sad dreams where the most unhappy dream that I have, which is not super frequent, but it does happen like maybe every year I'll have a dream like this, is in the dream I will be hanging out with like a family member who has passed away, or I'll have been in like a past relationship or something when it was good. And then halfway or near the end of the dream, I will realize that these things are not true anymore. Like that family member is no longer with us, or that relationship has ended, and I'm no longer with that person. And then I will just have this deep sadness come over me, and I'll just be like, I hate this dream. This is horrible. And then I'll wake up. So that's
yeah,
something that I
yeah.
experience every once in a while. And yeah, I think as an adult, I look at that and I look at the nightmares I had when I was little, and I was like, this is the worst kind of dream. The sad dream. The sad dream is the one I like the least of any kind of
Yeah.
dream that I've had.
But in a way, doesn't you get a little more time with
Yeah,
those people
yeah.
when you dream about them?
Totally. There is that silver lining to it, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's your experience, but I mean, if you're having it and you can't control them, maybe it's
Mhm.
just yeah. At least we get a little more like I don't know. Ask I would wonder maybe if I could ask questions I didn't ask or say something I haven't said. I don't know. It's something
Mhm.
that you made me think about. Just for if I wow that's I people say like we say we don't dream, but people say everybody dreams. We just don't remember them.
Totally.
I
Yep.
don't know if that's true. I take CBD for anxiety, and now I remember that says that that can suppress dreams or remembering the dreams. So maybe that's one of the reasons I don't remember them. But yeah,
Well,
so
it definitely
I
helps to write them down if you do want to keep remembering them. Like
yeah, but
once you when you
I
wake
don't.
up, like if you're thinking of them, if you because usually there's that thing where you wake up and you remember it,
Yeah,
and then within like a
I
half an hour, it'll like slip away from you.
yeah
So if
yeah,
you can get to,
but
a
I
piece of
don't.
paper or something, okay,
I
well,
don't. Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah.
so at least I have been trying to, and then so the idea of my game was exactly that, like a game for me to create my dreams if I don't dream, you know,
Hmm.
and yeah, so that's like a solution for a problem I have. Like I want to have a dream journal, but I don't dream. So how do I create dreams? So that's the game, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool.
yeah,
Yes, I'm a proponent of dreams and talking about dreams, so I'm into this
yeah.
project. Let me let me know more about it when
Yeah,
it's
I will because I you make music and then I thought well maybe we could have some kind of weird dream like music too because it's gonna be like the idea is for you to have a dream journal for the dreams you make
mm,
so you could write with like kind of this dream like kind of music and you generate your dreams because it's my strategy is it's like a game very simple because there's a lot of prompts but like the random tables for you to create you have to fill up because it's your dreams so you fill with your memories stories and things and then you roll up to create your dreams and stuff so it's kind of make your own dream like games and can be like a diary for you to write things up and having like a sound would be something we could talk about and it's going to be really cool and your work is great so yeah
well, yeah, hey, if you
uh
want some ambient soundscapes, I am into that.
yeah
Especially these days. One of the synthesizers I got maybe like at this point almost a year ago, maybe 8 months ago, I got it. Is just perfect for that kind of music, and I love it, and I love playing around with it. Uh,
yeah
Listen, I could talk
but
to you about
anyway
the
yeah
synthesizers if you want
let's
me to.
yeah
I will,
yeah
but we don't need to get into that.
yeah let's get into the meat of this weird podcast which is let's talk about weird and what is weird for you Lex and how would you define it and how do you seek that in your work with rpgs and your work uh, in your life with sounds and music and stuff
Hmm. Well, weird is definitely. Let's see. I think it depends on the medium in terms of how I'm going to describe it. So when we're talking about writing, and you look at, I did this project called AZAG, which you're familiar with because you worked on that with me. And I
Mhm.
was trying to make that really weird. I specifically was like, oh, this is about weird fiction from the 30s. And I read a lot of Clark Ashton Smith. Very, very prominent influence on that game. And I think when you're talking about weird in writing, like very purple prose is what does it for me. I don't know if that's like always the best way to do it or the best way for it to be translated for everyone. But yeah, for me it's those weird fiction authors from the 30s just using words that you're like you read it and you think I think I know what that means, but I'm not actually entirely sure. And it's that same thing where
Yeah,
when something's weird, you're like, oh, this is off. I think I know what that thing is, but I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't seem right. So I think that helps a lot. I really like that in that medium. But if you're talking about another medium, like music, for instance, I think soundscapes are really good for conveying weirdness because they don't really conform to a beat or any kind of song structure. They're just kind of these weird morphing tones, and you kind of listen to it and you get taken on the journey of how this sound
Yeah.
transforms as you're listening to it. And it's always gonna, well, not always, but it will often be in unexpected ways because of the fact that it's not structured like a traditional song that you'd hear on the radio.
It's almost like a sound narrative in a way, right? It's
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah. I never
It
thought
gives you
about that, but it's great.
gives you
Yeah.
those different emotions, and you discover them as you're listening to it. Whereas if you have a pop songs are also great, but they're not weird because, or at least I don't think they are, because when you're listening to a pop song, it has its identity, which you can usually identify with and
Yeah.
understand pretty well. And then it feels consistent throughout the entire track, most of the time, for most songs. Like if you listen to, I don't know, Blink 182, you're like, listen, this is a teenage angst song, and I'm going to get
Yeah.
that vibe. That's what I'm going to feel like. It's going to be high energy all the way through. That's going to be it. But, but if you listen to something by Tangerine Dream, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that artist, but they're very
No.
cool. They did a lot of movie soundtrack work. A Sorcerer, I think it's William Friedkin, maybe not William Friedkin. I'm not sure who directed that, but Tangerine Dream did the soundtrack for that. Really cool. What else did they do? A lot of Michael Mann movies. Thief is really good. Legend, the original theatrical score for Legend, is Tangerine Dream, and it's just these really, really interesting soundscapes, and it gives you this sort of shifting mood, which works really well for a movie soundtrack because stuff is
Yeah.
happening on the screen, and then the characters, like, something within the movie changes, like it's a character kills another character, for instance, right? And then you want the soundtrack to change to mirror the
Reflects
emotion
that.
that's going
Yeah.
with that. Yeah. So I think, yeah, Tangerine Dream, in terms of electronic music, their soundtrack work and their ambient stuff is just like real chef's kiss. I listen to that a lot.
Yeah. It sounds great. It's a great idea to, you know, pair with RPGs instead of just music and or uh, it gives a lot more flexibility and variety and space for things to happen. Yeah, than expected, as you said. And I think both of these, like as both the what you described for writing and the music, it's about this. It seems familiar, but it's has something that it's strange and weird for you. I think I know what it is. Like I think I know what this word is, but you kind of don't, but you kind of get it in the narrative and in the soundtrack. The soundscape is kind of. I think I know what it is. It's kind of a music, but it's not, right?
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of the word in disguise. It's something that attracts you or inspires you in a way, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Do you think role playing games are weird and in themselves? And what would be your favorite part of a favorite thing about role playing games?
You know, I'm gonna have another hot take. I think role-playing games, I need to take another firm stance. I think role-playing games are not weird at all, or they don't have to be, because role-playing games get this rap, especially in popular culture, that you're, a bunch of nerds sitting around a table and you're playing this game where you're pretending to be a wizard or what have you and fight a dragon, and that's weird, but that shouldn't be weird. For one thing,
Oh,
because it's
but
collaborative
weird can
storytelling,
be
which is,
a good
well,
thing
no,
too. Yeah,
yeah, weird can be
yeah,
good, I suppose.
yeah,
And well, it is totally in many instances.
yeah.
But I think on its face, the idea of doing collaborative storytelling, the idea of acting stuff out with your friends and just like inhabiting a role and stuff, that should be something that we as a society or people as humans consider to be completely ordinary, because I think that's good
We do
for
it
us.
all the time.
Yeah, we do it all the time, right?
We do
It's
it all the
it's
time.
good.
We are doing it now,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Everybody does it. Everybody is kind of different depending on who they are, and
mhm.
and we also we also try to act according to the model the person has of us in a way, right? Because we don't
Yeah.
want to make them uncomfortable too. Like, who is this person? I didn't know they would do that. So we are all, in kind of way, we are all kind of playing a game, a role playing game in a
Yes.
sense.
The
Yeah,
the code switching of life, totally. But can role playing games be weird? Yes, absolutely. I think that, like I was saying, the main act of playing them, I don't think should be considered that way. But I think there are things you can explore in them. There are different sort of ways to play them or subject matter that they can inhabit, which can totally be weird.
of course. Yeah.
100%.
And what is your favorite part of the hobby of role playing games?
Oh gosh, what is my favorite part? That's a big question. There are so many things about role playing games that I like. I really like tinkering with them. I really like playing them. I really like running them. I think favorite part. I think I'm gonna say I think running it and seeing the sort of the realization that a player gets when you put a task or a challenge in front of them and they figure out a way to get around it. And sometimes it's a way that surprises you. That's actually even better. When it's a way that surprises you and they have
And
that,
them. Yeah.
yeah, they get that moment of inspiration where them or all the people at the table like get it. They're like, "Oh, we could do this thing and that would totally solve the problem." And then yeah, especially if it's something that you didn't think of but totally makes sense within the context, sharing that kind of excitement with them, I think is probably my favorite part. I love that about RPGs.
Yeah, that's something unique, right? Uh, because for board games, the problem will be prescribed, and the solution also, will have to
Mm.
be prescribed by the rules. And also in video games, uh, yeah, that's a great, and it's very unique to the media, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of weird or any kind of creative ritual that you do when you go sit down to do your work, you sit down to write, or you sit down to make music or edit or anything like this? You put some, put some music to edit music would be weird, but you put in like, do you put a suit like this? Do you like put on some shoes? Do you like dress to work? As because some people do that. I don't know. Do you have anything like this?
Well, I'm always wearing suits, so that's no different than any other time. I'm never without a suit jacket because that's just my thing. But I think when I'm making music, I look at art. So I need to have that other stimuli. And when I'm making music, obviously, like you were saying, you can't do music. But I think having that a strong visual is really helpful. So I will look at that. And when I'm writing, I will listen to music. But I have the weirdest time getting into the creative zone. I think this is something that I'm constantly working on. It's like the constant artist's battle where you want to be able to create on a regular basis because then your
Uh,
work is consistently coming out. But can you get creative and in the mood to create on a regular basis? That's tough. And you can kind of train yourself to do it. And I've had some luck with that when there's nothing getting in the way of me training myself to do it. So during the pandemic, when I was furloughed from work and I was just at home all the time, I created a schedule. I found out that like, okay, I am the most creative at 1 a.m. in the morning. That's when my juices are
is that
really,
true?
yes, definitely.
Wow.
But and because I wasn't working, I was like, okay, cool. So I'm going to change my sleep schedule so that I'm still
Yeah.
getting good sleep, but I'm sleeping mostly during the day and I'm doing stuff at night. And that's basically, I wrote my first zine, my first OSR style zine, The Shifting City, in a week just because I had changed my schedule. At 1 a.m., I'd be like, it's time to be creative. And my brain was like, yes, this is the time. I want to do this. And I'd work and
Wow.
just blow
Yeah.
through a ton of text from like 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. or maybe 4. And yeah, I did that for a solid week and did the whole zine. and it was great. And I really love how it came out. I was really happy with my work. But the real world wants you to have to go to the bank at 11
Yeah.
a.m. or you have a full-time job and that's like a 9 to 5. You need to be able to get up for that. So in more recent years, I've been like, okay, how do I force myself to be creative on a schedule that conforms to everyone else's schedule, the real world, everything else?
Yeah.
And that has been a lot more difficult, but I have on times that I have been on vacation from work, I have been trying out this new thing where I've been like, okay, I'll get up at 9. I will immediately sit down and do some writing for at least an hour, maybe two. And then after that, I will exercise for an hour, maybe two. Then I'll have lunch. Then I will sit down and write some more for another hour or two. Then I will exercise again. Then I
Wow.
will maybe do something fun or what have you, like talk to some friends or whatever, read a book, do so, or like watch something. Then I'll have dinner, and then maybe I'll be more creative in the evening, maybe not. But I'll be treating most of the creative work like it's a job and segmenting it out and breaking up that creative work, which involves a lot of sitting at a desk with
Yeah.
physical activity. And that has worked pretty well, but again, it's one of those things that I can't do it if I'm working full time. So that
Yeah.
schedule is kind of my new modus operandi instead of being up in the middle of the night to get stuff done, but it's still not if I could go full time with RPG stuff and quit my job, then yes, that's what I would do. How I would organize my
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
until I can do that, I'm still working on what a better schedule, a schedule that works best for me. Because it's just so tough when you work full time and you come home in the evening, you get back from work, you eat, you like do some housework, whatever,
Yeah.
wash your
You
dishes.
still have to do dishes, clean your clothes.
Yeah,
You still have to do everything in
yeah,
the house.
yeah, you do your laundry, and then you're just like, I don't want to sit down and write. I want to just relax because I just spent all day at work and then I did all this
That's true.
housework and all this stuff. So it's tough. It's tough to find that balance.
It is. I don't know. For me, it was, I spent almost a year in this state of I couldn't even answer emails because I was super tired. Work was hard. We were having troubles with the kid was having troubles adapting in school. So it was really, I couldn't do anything. And but I don't know when I came back and I started doing at least like half an hour. I don't, you said writing for like 2 hours. And like, wow, that's like really ambitious. Like for me, I can't, I can't. It's impossible for me to sit like for the podcast is the time I sit for like 2 hours with someone, but it's like I sit down, write half an hour, and I have to do something, and I I don't know. I would start really modest and slow, maybe if that works for you. And because that's really ambitious, like 2 hours and exercise and then write more and wow, yeah,
It I like that. I mean, I think the thing I like most is breaking up the writing with the exercise. I think that helps a lot.
yeah, yeah.
But
What do you
yeah,
do for exercise?
I have a treadmill, which I do power walking on because I'm not really up to jogging and running for extended periods of time, but I like doing the power walking. I also have a pull-up bar that I will be on a bit, and I have a rower, which I got actually just recently. I got that not for Christmas, but around Christmas as kind of a hand-me-down gift because my mom was like, "Hey, I have a gym membership now, and I don't need this rower anymore because it's kind of old. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want it. Give that to me." So
And
I've been
do you
spending a lot of time on that.
exercise? Do you exercise regular, like you're talking about, right? And exercising when you're not working, but and how you're tired, doing the day job and take care of the house. Do you exercise when you're working, or
Yeah, I do exercise. I probably am better about exercising than I am about writing, to be
well,
honest.
it's your health. Like, yeah, well, it's you should be, yeah,
Yeah, I will get, especially because I really like the rower that I got at the beginning of the year. So I've been using that for at least 15 minutes a day every
awesome.
day. Yeah.
Wow,
so far in 2024, and I have been able to keep that up pretty well. And I do like a lot of push-ups and then some basic cardio. So I'll get home from work, and
Nice.
if I'm
Wow,
not
that's
super
great.
tired, yeah, if I'm not super tired, I'll be like, okay, I can devote the half an hour before I eat dinner to just exercising, and I will just do that. And it's good. It
Yeah.
feels good to exercise. Well, that's not true. No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel good to exercise. It just makes you more tired. It feels it's good to know that you are
It feels
exercising.
worse not to exercise.
Yes, yes. It feels worse not to exercise. It's one of
That's
those
it.
things that people I know who are like you go to the gym are always like exercise is great. You get those endorphins and it feels great.
No,
And I'm
it's
just
not.
like, listen, I maybe I'm not exercising hard enough, but all I've ever felt after exercising is sore and tired. But then, the next day I will have more energy, right? It's just that the
Yeah,
actual act of doing
yeah.
the exercising is not pleasant.
And if you're doing it regularly, you will feel better all the time. And then I know I feel better when and now that I've created the habits. I don't work out as much as like every day. I work like 4 times a week, and maybe that's why I have some more time to write. I won't work out every day.
Four times a
Hell
week is
no.
still great though, especially
Yeah.
considering, you've got a day job, you've got a family, you've got all that stuff going on. Four times a week is really good. So don't feel bad about that.
Yeah. And and I feel better, and sometimes when I see that I'm like 3 days without doing anything, I start to feel more anxious, like the anxiety sort of builds
Mhm.
up, and I say, yes, I have to exercise. So that's what I mean. Like, I don't like it, it gets sweaty, you get tired, you get sore, but it makes you feel better the rest of the time when you're not
Yeah.
exercising.
Yeah,
That's the point.
totally.
It's terrible while you're doing, but afterwards it's way better
Hmm.
somehow.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things
Next,
I've got to get better
go.
about doing is stretching. That's my last
Oh
exercise
yeah,
thing I want to mention. I always forget, like I don't yeah, I always forget to stretch, or I'll like do some very basic stretching and then I'll be like, "Oh, I
yeah,
should have stretched more." Or I'll get a Charlie horse after I've been on the treadmill and I'm like, "That's because I didn't stretch. I'm an idiot." So,
yeah. I have
that's
to
me.
do that. I do the basics because the exercise that I do, they have like a basic stretching afterwards. But
Hmm.
I'm sensing some of parts are not as flexible as I was before, so I have to do some. Yeah, my past job, my past day job, they had one of those inside workouts sometimes of
Oh,
the week, and it was
nice.
great because you got up and would do stuff, and then you got back. But the new one, the one that I have been for like 10 years, doesn't have anything. We barely has functioning bathrooms because I
Oof.
work for the government, so it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
building is terrible. It's infested with abandoned animals, and it's terrible. Anyway, uh,
Hello, weirdos. This is Diogo Nogueira, and I'm back with a word from our sponsors. Me. I just released a new game called Kosmosaurs, in which you play a dinosaur space ranger who protects the galaxy from evil threats such as slime bankers, undead pirates, and Kosmosaurs from a void dimension. It's a game with a runes light system inspired by Forged in the Dark and Lasers and Feelings. It comes with a bunch of tables for you to generate content for it. If you know my games, they're really easy to play and they have tools to help you improvise and play with low prep. It's an ideal game for one-shots, short campaigns, and introducing new people to the hobby, and it's a really perfect family game. I play with my kids all the time. It's a game inspired by Saturday morning cartoons. It's really well illustrated by Lucas Kowalski from Poland, and with a great layout by Guilherme Gontijo. It's a really fun game. You should check it out on DriveThruRPG, itch.io, or exclusively in print on exaltedfurniture.com. I have many other games there, check them out. All the links are in the show notes, so click there. And let's get back to Weird with our chat.
Lex, do you identify any place you draw a lot from when you create your work? I talk here about how I draw a lot from the stuff that I used to watch and read and consume in my childhood. Of course, as creators, we are constantly drawing from everything. Like as I said, we were talking about dreams, and I had the idea of making a dreams because I can't dream, and but this part of my childhood is very important because it was kind of my refuge. So the cartoons and everything. So do you identify anything from you, like not necessarily a period, or maybe a type of fiction, or any kind of category that you see drawing a lot from when you create your work?
I like to be influenced by the media that I'm checking out for sure. But I don't know if there's like an an media from my childhood that really is specific to me. It's more that I just go through phases of liking different kinds of things, and the references to those things never really leave me, but when I'm really into them, I like referencing them a lot in my work. I think maybe the only thing that I always come back to, and this is probably just the zeitgeist of fantasy RPGs, is
Yeah.
that kind of classic Dungeons and Dragons thing of I don't even remember what show it would have been or what movie it would have been that I was watching back when I was little to get that vibe, but it's something about that like core fantasy. It must have been like The Hobbit. I think that was one of the earliest like fantasy things that I read. And yeah, just like this magic rings, the sort of the way magic can be mysterious, I think is really great. And slaying dragons, all that kind of thing. I think the reason why that there's always sort of that high, chasing that high of playing fantasy RPGs is coming back to that and that imprint in my childhood. But in terms of my current work or as I'm going, the stuff that's influencing me, when I was doing AZAG, I was reading lots of Appendix N, and I was like, how do I capture the vibe of all of these stories into a game? When I was reading a lot of other like weird fiction. I was thinking about that when I was doing Shifting City and listening to a lot of soundtrack work. When I was doing the project that I'm doing now, that I mean it's on Kickstarter while we're recording this, but I assume when this
Oh
airs,
yeah.
the campaign will be over. But I'm doing a not Ghostbusters. I'm going to put Ghostbusters in air quotes adventure called Terror Vision, and it's I originally wrote it early last year to run as a stream, and we ran it as a campaign. But it's using the Ghostbusters RPG from 1986 that West End Games came out with, simple D6 system. Really fun, holds up really well as sort of a rules light RPG. And it was an adventure set in the mid 80s in New York City. I got to reference all of these great 80s horror flicks that I love and a lot of comedies too. There's a little bit of some kind of like Mr. Vampire stuff in there, but there's also a lot of Poltergeist 1, 2, and 3, Evil Dead. There's some other weird 80s references like Max Headroom gets referenced in there, and lots of commercials and consumerism, malls, all sorts of weird things. I love I have people I think people would assume that I am super nostalgic for the 80s, but I don't know if that's exactly the right way to put it because I wasn't alive during that decade. I was born in 88, so I guess I was technically alive during 2 years of that decade, but I wasn't
Yeah.
cognizant during that decade. But I love all the stuff from that decade just because it has this
It's so
that
iconic.
yeah, and like this the Spielberg, I think it's referred to as like the Spielberg sort of glow, like that form of filmmaking that has a kind of vibe to it that really sticks with you. The kind of vibe you get from like E.T. or some of his other things, or you really get it in the
Yeah.
Goonies. A lot of those kid adventure movies
It
from the
does.
80s.
It does has an aesthetic, a vibe, or yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
was like in '84 and was barely a kid, but you and in Brazil everything came 10 years later, so most of your '80s stuff arrived here in the '90s. So yeah, '80s for me was the '90s here. So yeah, I
mm,
like all this stuff. Yeah. And talking about besides this media and things that inspires you, And what, we have to go back. I'm gonna ask you about your project that you're working now, and even though the episodes might not come out in time, I always share that I had just this chat with you, and I'll share the link to the Kickstarter. Maybe it will help a little bit. I didn't know we were running a Kickstarter right now. Is it for ZeneQuest?
It is part of Zine Quest, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
I
I'll
don't know
check
if it'll
that out
fund.
and
I
share
I
too.
feel like it's not gonna fund, but that's okay because it was still really fun to do. And it's one of those things where as a creator who wants to figure out how to make money in the space, I think it's really good to try to do these things because then you can be like, oh, okay, if I did this and I know this is my social media pull and this is the kind of response that I got on it, or these are the kinds of pieces of advertising I used and this is the response I got
Yeah.
on those, then when you do those kind of projects in the future, you're like, okay, now I know what to expect based on the numbers that I
Yeah.
had then, and I can kind of extrapolate. So I've never done a Kickstarter before. So I was like, I mean, I have X amount of
Yeah.
people on Twitter that follow me, and I know that like I'm on some Discord servers, and I also know that I have like this many followers on Itch and this many people I can email through drive through. So how
Yeah.
much is that going to generate? And I now have a very good idea of those numbers, which is a little less than I
Oh.
thought. But the fact that now I know, I'm like, okay, so in the future, if I want to do a project, I can set my goals within a space that will work for the size. Or if I grow significantly on any of those platforms, I will be like, okay, if X number of people gave me X number of backers on crowdfunding, then that means if my number of followers has grown by Y, then I can also multiply the number of backers that I'm potentially going to get by that number. And it just allows me to break everything down and get a really good idea of the math of it so I can better plan projects in the future. And I think that's always valuable. So, you know, I'm not too salty if
Yeah.
it doesn't fund. That's all right.
Well, it's a extremely mature way to see it, and a very good example for creators that might be listening to this to learn from what doesn't work. But you still have 19 days, and this looks cool. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I really liked how the video came out. I got to use all of my knowledge of old video equipment and do like video glitching on it
But
and stuff, and I
but do
loved
they
doing that.
need the original Ghostbuster RPG to play this, or will
Oh
have the
yeah.
rules?
Okay, so I'll talk about it. It's 100% compatible with the old RPG, but I know that the old RPG is out of print because, it's a licensed thing and West End Games no longer exists, obviously. So West End Games, or rather the person who wrote the Open D6 system or the D6 system in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
in the early aughts, got that system and attached it to the OGL and made the Open D6 system. So, because they used it for a bunch of movie tie-in games.
Yeah.
They had an Indiana Jones game, I think. They had a Men in Black game at one point during the 90s.
Yeah.
They had another one that was a big Star Wars. They had a
Yeah,
Star Wars
it's
game.
an
Yeah,
open
how did
game.
I forget Star Wars?
Yeah,
And
Gala Night
yeah,
Games just published, second edition of the Western Games D6 with Zorro. Zorro
yeah,
RPG is a
yeah.
D6 system. Yeah.
So now that is was attached to the OGL in the early aughts, and the OpenD6 is totally a thing people can hack and use. I thought, okay, well, for the Kickstarter, I will make an intellectual property free version of the old Ghostbusters rules. So I wrote that up and I made that as like a nice PDF. I named it Spectral Exterminators just to so again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not IP, but you get what it is.
Yeah.
And if you back the Kickstarter, you immediately get that PDF. I should actually send it to you just
Oh,
because I
okay.
want your opinion on how it's written. But I did this thing with the layout because I don't have like the Kickstarter is for art for the main adventure. So I don't really have
Mm-hmm.
very much art. I have Emil Bovin has made a few pieces for me, which I'm really happy with. I love he made an off-brand Ghostbusters logo, which I absolutely adore. I love how it came out. And I used that as the cover for the Spectral Exterminators book. But since I didn't have a lot of art to put in it, I was trying to think of what can make it visually interesting. And I thought back to the way I read the Ghostbusters RPG, the 1986 West End Games one. is the only way to get it right now, unless you buy it on eBay, is you can go to a fan website where you can download the PDFs that someone has
Mm.
scanned. And the scans are awful. They're so bad. There's like a bunch of pages with like words cut off, and the images look
Yeah.
really like washed out and terrible. It's bad. But when I was doing Spectral Exterminators, I was like, it would be really fun to give it the visual of a bad photocopy, but like not actually cutting off text because you want to be able to read it, right? So I
Yeah.
did stuff in Photoshop where I all the pages are slightly skewed as if someone was photocopying them, but they didn't line them up on the
Yeah.
photocopier correctly.
Ninainen, yeah.
Yeah, and they have all of this sort of like slight blurring to all the text because you get that how it's like a copy of something, right? So it's not as crisp as it should be. And I did a screen overlay in Photoshop of a bunch of photocopy textures that I found for free on the internet. So in certain places along the page, the text doesn't have as much ink as in other parts because of the screened image. And it came out
Hmm.
looking great. I'm really happy with
Yeah,
it.
it sounds cool. Yeah, I want to check that out.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
definitely, maybe I can send you a copy now and you can take a look at it because I think I have it. Do I? I know you on Discord, right? Of course I do because we set up
yeah.
that actual play
Yeah.
on Discord. So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
send it to you on Discord.
And Weird Games and Weirder People has a Discord server.
Oh
So
my gosh.
if anyone wants to join and talk weird and share about art, what you're working on, reading, and just saw, if you just saw a ghost and you took a picture, just post it there for those, for us to check out. I don't know.
Oh,
And
definitely. If you
yeah,
see any supernatural stuff, please
yeah.
post it.
And since you're talking about this project, what is the favorite part of the project for you, or the weirdest one?
My favorite part is probably getting to write comedy again because I did that a little bit with my first actual play and I really enjoyed it. And otherwise, a lot of my RPG projects have not had very much comedy in them. I mean, I think that Shifting City had a lot of Fritz Leiber influence, and
Yeah,
there's sort of a dry humor to those books
yeah.
that I
Some
really like.
sarcasm and irony. Yeah, I love.
Totally.
This is my favorite author for Sword and Sorcery because exactly because this kind of humor in it that other authors doesn't don't have. They take themselves too seriously in a way. Yeah.
Yes, totally. I mean, it's not that there isn't a place for that seriousness. I enjoy
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's
Of
fun to
course.
mix it up. And with the Ghostbusters thing, I leaned really heavily into the comedy. There's in the book, in the Spectral Exterminators book, you know how you'll have like a page header that'll say the name of the chapter, right, in most books.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're on to a second page that has the same header, in many books it will say that header and then in parentheses it'll say continued, right? Or something like that. In
Yeah.
this one, if it ever goes to a second header, there's parentheses, but it always says something silly. So the playing the game section, once it gets to the second page of that, the parentheses say still going, and then the third page of that says almost done, I promise. Um,
Yeah.
and
I love that. Yeah.
so there's all sorts of there's silly metatextual things in it, which I love about RPGs. Like it says in the core mechanic of this book, it says it's talking about how to play, and it's saying that, let me see here. I want to find this quote. Yes. Okay. So uh the dice clatter across the table, and then there's an asterisk, and then it continues to say, and the roll comes up as 2, 4, 5, 6, and 1, and then tells you the total, right? But if you go to the bottom of this page, it tells you what the asterisk is referring to, and the asterisk is referring to one of the dice technically fell off the table onto the floor, but we decide to count it anyway, because that's just like a thing that happens when you're playing games.
Yeah.
So I wanted to reference it.
Yeah.
But so yeah, metatextual jokes, great. I love that. It's really fun, especially in the RPG stuff because you have all those silly things about RPGs. But then the not subvert overt jokes in it are like the monsters are things like, let me see if I can get to that. There's Yeah, okay. So there's a monster that I wrote called Melomania. Melomania means love of music, or like you really are into music. I think melomaniac is a person who has they're main they have a mania of music because they like it so much. And the
Yeah.
melomania ghost that's in this game is described as dying on the dance floor didn't stop this disco fan. Now they're summoned by any Bee Gees 45 played at the former venue that they died at. They can use their telekinetic ability to keep the dance floor moving. So their whole thing is they're like a ghost that looks like an old disco guy out of like Saturday Night Fever, and
Yeah.
they just want to make everyone dance. And that's the threat of this ghost is they just if they get summoned, they're just using their powers to make everyone keep dancing until they die of exhaustion
Yeah.
or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's the problem of the
Yeah.
monster that you have to deal with. So
Yeah, and like the guy with the flutes, that would kidnap children, or there's this
oh
theme of
yeah.
the dancing, like the spell in D&D, like the dying after the guy also keeps dancing and stuff. That's great. Yeah,
Yes. What was it? Tasha's Irresistible Dance? Is that it?
I don't know.
I don't
Or is it
know.
laughter? I don't know. But the principle is about that, and having these ghosts and have this appearance, and he kind of just wanna have fun doing the things he likes, right? He's not, he's doing evil, but it's not like he kind of wants but doesn't in a way, Yeah,
Yeah, no, there's nothing. Oh, Autoluke's Irresistible Dance and then Tasha's Hideous Laughter are the spells we're
yeah,
thinking of. They're very similar, but yeah, no, it's since it's based off Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters is
yeah,
a comedy. It's not really
yeah,
scary. It's
yeah,
not supposed to. No
yeah,
one's supposed to die in it, really, even though you deal with a lot of ghosts. But
yeah,
I was just like, okay, I want to make all these guys
yeah,
threatening and
for
challenges, but
sure. Yeah,
they're not actually going to kill you, or like not,
yeah.
they're not actually scary.
There's all
Uh,
these ghosts of people who died, but no one dies. So it's like,
exactly. No,
yeah,
it's actually really funny. If you watch the Ghostbusters movies, I don't know if you ever see anyone die in those movies, but there's ghosts
yeah.
all over the place. I think maybe a minor character might kick the bucket like off
Yeah, I think
screen.
that's yeah, off screen, and even that like off screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I wrote that into the into the rules of the game. It's just like
yeah,
in the GM advice section, it's just like this game is really lighthearted. Don't kill anyone. If your character loses all their health, they get knocked out, they do something silly, or like you cut to later when they're in the hospital in like a full body cast. Like it's like a cartoon.
yeah,
You don't want
yeah,
people to actually get hurt or die because that's not the vibe that the game is going for.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But oh, so I sent
And
you a copy of that thing on Discord if you want to take a look at it.
okay, yeah.
You don't have
And
to
do
do it
you?
during the show, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And because I will lose focus. That's what I said. Like in the
Totally.
internet is terrible for me.
Hmm.
Uh, but talking about comedy in role playing games, and like I have one of the things I wish I was capable of doing is like doing a stand up comedy RPG or kind of thing, or even kind of a Seinfeld kind of role playing games. And do you think RPGs have explored comedy enough? And how do you feel about comedy in RPGs? Like RPGs really focusing on that part.
First off, I want to mention that there is a game someone made called Troika Field, which is a Seinfeld Troika
Oh
RPG
yeah,
game. I
yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah.
hearing about it years ago. I
But I
haven't
mean,
read it, but
one
it's great.
specifically, for this kind of thing. Like I was imagining like having attributes for like physical comedy because of Kramer, and having adventure generators. Like you're in the movies, and there's this kid kicking your back of your chair, and someone's like loudly chewing popcorn, and you have to deal with that, and this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I think that comedy, for one thing, comedy should be done more in RPGs, 100%, because it's great. I think when we play RPGs, we devolve into comedy often anyway. Like, what was the thing
Yeah,
in Doom of the Savage Kings where Sarah's character was extremely
Well,
paranoid. Her dwarf was like a conspiracy theorist, and he would
yes.
always talk about how the birds are monitoring them or something. It was really good. So, that tends to work its way into any game, no matter what the tone of the game is. But I often feel like
But
we
it's not
should just,
about that, right? I
yeah,
was wondering, like, games about comedy, or it's something
yeah.
that's rarer. I think it's
Oh,
hard
it
to
totally
find.
is. And I think more should be written like that because that kind of play, when we devolve into comedy, is fun, is really fun. Not the only way to have fun with an
Yeah,
RPG, but
of
a great
course.
way to. So I want to see more games that encourage that. I'm trying to think of like another West End Games joint, Paranoia, I think does a good job of being a very snarky, very sort of satirical game that I like a lot. Just the fact that you can be killed and are killed frequently, but in the game you immediately respawn because there's like infinite clones of you is amazing, and I love that. I think
Yeah.
that opens up so many amazing roleplay possibilities. But I'm trying to think of like other comedy games that have come out. Uh they're making an Adventure
Yeah.
Time one that'll
No,
probably have a comedy
there is
bent to
Toon,
it.
right?
Oh,
Toon
there's
from
Toon. I've never played
Steve
Toon, but
Jackson
I've heard good things
Games.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, they had this in Brazil, like they translated it here, and I played that a lot. And the system was actually quite flexible, and like I made like a sensei hack of Toons, and it was great. I really enjoyed Toons, and probably it should be something I should read again before I try doing like a comedy game. I don't have my copy anymore, but I think they sell the PDFs still on their site.
Oh, probably. Well,
Uh,
speaking to genre emulation, right? You've got you just need to figure out, especially if you're doing comedy, what is the cornerstone about this genre that like allows the funniness to happen? Or what is like the main theme of the satire in it, or something like that. And then you
yeah,
figure out a way to mechanize that. So, like in Ghostbusters, you have the stats
that's
are,
the hard part for me in comedy RPGs because uh, how it's supposed to be funny, and the main thing is that like for example, if I would do like the Seinfeld RPG, the the funny thing is like this common things and how we badly react to them or how
yeah.
we and how that's funny, and I don't know, and I
You
my idea is like having a mechanic. It has to do with if people laugh on the table. If people don't
That's
laugh,
great. Yeah.
you know you don't get what you want in a way. So
That would be good. So like I was saying with Ghostbusters, its stats are like muscles, brains, which you expect, moves, and cool. And moves and cool are either like moves is either your agility or like literally how suave you are. And then cool is how well you perform under pressure, but also how like up with modern trends you are. and
yeah.
uh and then the t- tr- no, I always get traits and talents mixed up, but the talents, which are the things that come right after those,
Mm-hmm.
you pick one for each trait. So you pick something, but they're all hyper specific, and you're basically making them up yourself. So the game is like, oh, if you want to think of a brains talent, you could think of parapsychology, right? Because it's a Ghostbusters game.
Yeah.
But you can also go much sillier. So like a muscles talent, something that is like physical endurance, you could pick competitive eating. So you are
Yeah.
really good at this very hyper specific thing, and then the game tells you when you're playing, you want to make a roll and you want to find a way to use that talent,
Yeah.
which is hyper
Yeah.
specific. So you have to figure out silly ways to do things that take advantage of the things that you are specifically good at. So it's just like, how do we get rid of this ghost? I'm really good at competitive eating, so what if I ate all of its slime?
Yeah.
Then
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. That's
so the
great.
situation you get in the game is absurd, right? Because you're
Yeah.
trying to utilize the
That's
mechanics
true.
that the game is giving you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good point for sure. Lex, what would you say was, the weirdest game you ever played, or even if not the weirdest, very weird game you played recently that maybe made an impression on you about how it does things or how it develops a story? I don't know. And it can be role playing games, it can be video games, it can be a board game, or, a game you play with friends in a party. I don't know, anything.
Um, I actually have a good answer for this for RPGs, which is the game Invisible Sun. My
Mm.
friend Jordan, who I do YouTube videos with often, is really into Invisible Sun. He has like the box set for it with like the weird hand thing, and he kept bugging me and some other people like several months ago to play that with him. And he's like, "Yeah, no one ever wants to play this because it's too weird." And I'm like, "I'll play it. Why not?" And it's all of the like the theme and the vibe and the narrative in that game is super weird in a really really interesting way because it's all bizarre takes on magic and a sort of another world that spellcasters inhabit, and it's got all these very surreal elements, and the art is really great at communicating that, the writing's really great at communicating that. I loved that part of it, but I never want to play that game again because
Oh, why?
mechanically, I don't think the mechanics support the weirdness of it very well. But
Mm.
they're also just complicated. It's like very confusing
It
to figure
seems
out how
like
much
too
to play.
much. Like,
Yeah, it's
the one
like
thing that keeps me away from it is like it's too much.
it's
It's
too
too much
much.
stuff. It's
Yeah.
scary.
It'd be one thing if it was a super rules light, easy mechanical system and had all of the other weirdness that was super pervasive, or if it was a complex system but the weirdness was dialed back. But the fact that you have this super involved setting and super involved mechanics is just too much. So, not a game I would necessarily recommend to play, but I would kind of still recommend to check out. Like, I would love it if someone just did a hack of that where they changed the rules and made them easier. um,
Yeah,
because there's so much cool stuff in there, and it's delightfully bizarre.
yeah. For me, it's scary too because I know I'm like a compulsive RPG buyer, and
Mm,
if I like this stuff, it costs a lot to have everything. So like I also try to avoid looking into it because if I like it, I want to get like the box that comes with everything, and I don't think that's healthy, and I don't have space for it, and it's
yeah,
gigantic. But
yeah,
I would like to know more about the idea, maybe the setting, but it's too much. I don't know.
yeah. It's and I'm kind of like that too. And I will especially be like if I see a smaller company putting out something, like if a Monty Cook Games thing, I had to fight myself. It wasn't until after I played Invisible Sun that I finally was like, okay, I'm not going to buy this because I had seen that box set and how cool it was, and it's very expensive. But Monty Cook Games is such a great like small company. Like from what I've heard, they're very good to their employees. They make really creative, interesting stuff. They make all these different games, and
Yeah.
I just appreciate that there's people in the space doing that. So then I want to give them my money more. Like I never feel the
Well, I buy other
compulsiveness to
stuff from
buy.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I never feel like I compulsively need to buy the new WotC product. Like I never feel
Oh
that way. I
no.
do not
Oh
care at
no.
all
Yeah.
when one of
I'm
those books comes
sorry.
out.
You know,
But when
I know there's great people that work on some of those
oh
products too,
yeah,
but it's Hasbro. I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
don't. I'm like
Yeah.
they got plenty of money. Whatever.
Yeah.
Their products don't really. They're not that interesting, and I don't really care about supporting that company. But there are all sorts of small companies like whenever Goodman Games puts out a new module, I'm just like I gotta buy that module. It's like 10,
Yeah.
15
Yeah.
bucks. I gotta buy it because Goodman Games are so cool. The module's gonna be fun. Maybe it's not gonna be amazing, but man, it's gonna be fun to read.
Oh
so
yeah.
i'm so I always am just like I have a my bookshelf in my other room has all of my DCC modules on it, and there's just tons of them, and I've run three of them
It's
maybe.
fantastic. Yeah.
but but I just
Yeah.
am always like
But the
reading.
idea is like you can read them and get a little bit of this encounter and put in one of your adventures or the
Totally.
running.
Yes.
Like, oh, I've
100%.
used it so much of the stuff that I got from there, and DCC is one of the games that continues to inspire me Like if I read the DCC again, I'll have new ideas again. It's a book that just gives you idea. It's a complete game. You can play it, of course, right? But it has some gaps, and they're explicit gaps. Say, oh, fill this in, and you have ideas of how to do stuff. It's a great game and a great game book as well.
Yes,
I would say.
totally. But yeah, I think I'm very, very. I have to struggle not to buy stuff from small creators that I really like because I think small creators
Yeah.
are awesome and really important. This is actually a big thing that I do with Jordan on our YouTube channel, on our Dungeon Tuber channel. Is
Yeah.
we have a video series called Games with Lex, formerly called Read Throughs with Lex, and we pick a product that we think is really interesting and then we just make a video discussing it. We really like highlighting smaller creators. So one of the first videos I think was for Mini BX. We've done
Oh, by Lucas. Yeah.
yeah. We did, what was the Legend of the Forgotten Ballad, which is another Latin American RPG creator.
Yeah, from Brazil
We
too. Yeah.
yeah, there are a lot of people out of Brazil who are very cool. Not you, so many others in addition to you.
Oh
There's
yeah.
there's a video that we've recorded but we haven't released. I don't know when we're putting it out. It's probably going to be a little while yet because we did a whole thing right before this year where we recorded like 20 videos with the intention to have them go up once a week, and we've just been slowly editing them and putting them out. But but we did one for this Brazilian creator named Horos, like horoscope
Oh
zine
yeah.
thing,
Horoscope.
and yeah,
Great
and
stuff too.
yeah, his stuff is so cool. And I just was like, I look at his stuff and I think maybe it's because a bunch of his stuff isn't in English or something, but it just feels like not enough people know who this creator is, and their work is
Yeah.
so interesting. So yeah, we did a video on them. We did a video on a Banana Chan project that we're going to be talking about in a couple months. What were some of the other ones we've done? It's just one of those things where I I think that especially in the OSR and the indie RPG scene, small creators are what make it go. They're very cool. You see all these great ideas. So I just wanted to devote like most of that channel to highlighting their work. Oh, that book that you posted on Instagram recently, The Sorcerer's Enclave, I think. We recorded a
Oh
video on that.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Andrew Holtz. Yeah, it's an artist. It's a fantastic illustrated book and in a kind of a setting, and it's very system neutral. Like you can use in basically any fantasy game. It's really
totally.
inspirational. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really got that Russ Nicholson vibe down, which
Yes.
is so cool.
For initially, well, this kind of feels like, but it's kind of different. It has its own identity, but it's you see the influence in the technique. And in Russ Nicholson was one of my it was my favorite, line work artist. Uh,
Yeah.
it's
Gosh, those
incredible.
fighting fantasy books that he worked on, just amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that was part of the reason why I made AZAG, because I was not well, yeah, because I got really into fighting fantasy and looking at those Ross Nicholson illustrations. And I didn't try and make AZAG's art look like Ross Nicholson's art, but the reason why I fell in love with the system and
Yeah.
the way everything works is really mostly him, even though I do love the mechanics of it, and that's what I ended up translating over. I think that, yeah, the person that first drew me in was Nicholson into that whole world. So gosh, it's so good. Warlock Firetop Mountain just still all the art in that book just still slaps so hard.
Yes.
It's just great. Oh,
It is.
but yeah, so smaller RPG creators, they should be supported. More people should know about them and the stuff they're making, and I want them to make more money. So I'm always just like, how can I talk them up? That's what I want to do.
Yeah. Great goal and a great work you've been doing. So, in name of everybody and us, we're proud of it too. So thank for the work you've been doing, and talking up these games and people, and spreading the word. Every little thing helps, right? Uh, you know, the podcast doesn't have like tons of thousands of listeners, but everything I think kind of helps, and it just feels good to hang out in a community too. Like even if it's just us talking with us, it kind of feels good in a way.
No, totally. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of discussion on social media about the toxic parts of communities. The OSR community is certainly not immune to that, and the 5e community is certainly not immune to that.
No
But when
community
you,
immune to that, you know.
yeah, no, totally. But there are sections of every community that are great and super supportive. And if you find those people and support those people and hang out with those people, it's hugely beneficial. It's really
Oh
just
yeah.
about like finding your right niche in it and hanging out there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, for me there is, the book that really inspires me that I talk about a lot called Still Like an Artist. And it says that, in the internet, the best thing you can do with the things that you don't like, it's kind of ignore it and don't talk about it, because the more
Mhm.
algorithm, like the more I'll talk about maybe someone that's I having problem, the more of something I'm having problem, the more the algorithm is gonna show me, and the more it's about that, and more I'll feel uncomfortable. So I don't know. For me, it's like really promote the good stuff. Talk about the good stuff.
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
the good work that people are doing, or the things that I like, and focus on that. And if comes this person or this thing to try to poop on the party, just block and move on,
Yeah, no,
and
totally.
that's it.
It's a shame that social media algorithms, most of them are meant to amplify negative discourse because that's the
Yeah,
thing that like it's
let's
easier
drive
for people to
engagement.
feed into. Yeah,
Engagement.
and it
Yeah.
drives engagement. And I just think that's such a shame and it's so sad. I always when I started when I first got on Twitter, when I made my Dank Dungeons Twitter, because I don't think I think I might have had a personal account before that, and I don't post to it really, but I had really never used Twitter seriously prior to that, and I had been thinking like I'm gonna make a Twitter my ground rule. I am not gonna ever say anything bad on this social media account. That is not gonna happen. And I'm pretty sure I've stuck to that all the years I've been on there. Maybe someone can search through my tweets and they'll make a liar out of me, but I'm pretty sure I have only ever said nice things. Most of the time, I try and prioritize being like, you should check out this product from this person, or you should just check out this person because they're cool,
Oh yeah.
or if someone posts something that I think is really cool, I will retweet it, or I will comment being like, wow, good job. Like, I think somebody
Yeah.
uh, I did that this morning, and now I'm blanking on which thing it was. But I remember. Oh, this wasn't this morning, but recently, Bob of Bob World Builder posted a video that I thought was great, and I commented or I retweeted being like, "Oh, it's so great that you're making a video," because it was like his different RPGs that he likes to play that aren't D&D, and I quote retweeted it. I was like, I love this because it's a great video because Bob is a great creator, and also because he's highlighting all of these games from smaller people and getting them out to his audience. And considering the size of his channel and the audience that he commands, having a bigger creator who's doing that is just beneficial to the community
Oh
and
yeah.
is like a total public good. So like that's the kind of stuff that I try to try to tweet out. Um, and just
Yeah,
only use
that's
social media for
that's
nice
good stuff.
things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good example, I think, And I think there is space for you, for those, to call out the bad stuff. We have to do this to, this constant criticizing of things. uh I don't know. It's not my thing. I
Yeah,
think
no, it's,
this positivity and showing the good stuff also acts as a role model. Like, we have to correct the stuff, but having those people acting well also serves as a model for the new people that are getting into the community, and
mhm.
seeing how they act. And that's how we learn. We model the behavior of the people that came before us, in a way, right? And that's how we learn the bad stuff too. So we keep doing the more positive. I think it's kind of helps you in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that there's also this narrative that you see online where people are like, well, you shouldn't be positive all the time because that's toxic positivity or something. And I'm like, sure, you should be critical of things when they're bad. But there's a big difference between being critical and being mean, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
can you can look at a work. Actually, AZAG, perfect example of this. In the foreword of that book, I write, "Hey," and I'm paraphrasing because I don't actually exactly remember what I wrote, but I write, "Hey, you know that 30s sword and sorcery, Conan the Barbarian stuff? I love it. I think it's awesome. At the same time, there is some wild sexism in those stories,
Oh yeah.
kind of because they're a product of their time, kind of shouldn't excuse it just for that. But I want to do this project because I want to take the things I love about those stories and play them out and develop them. And I want to leave the parts that aren't good
Oh
behind
yeah.
in the past. And that
Because
was one of the parts
they are
of,
not
and
important too. Like those part that the
no,
sexism,
they're not.
they are not
Not at
part of the
all.
essence of the stories, of the experience
No.
of the characters.
Yeah.
They're just trash that was left behind.
Mhm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's perfectly reasonable to say like a thing is good or a creator does good work, but they might have done something that maybe the creator has done something bad in the past, or there's something about their work
Yeah.
that isn't good. And it's perfectly okay to go and say, "Hey, this thing, I'm going to criticize it because I think these things it could have done better, or we shouldn't take away certain things from it, but that doesn't mean that we should just, you know, never use any of it. It doesn't mean that we should
Oh yeah.
completely ostracize a creator. We need to like
Yeah.
give people
Yeah. Yeah.
chances to learn and to grow because we're humans and that's kind of
Yeah.
what we do."
Yeah. Like those
Um,
reviews that said, "Oh, this game is shit." Well, what? There is probably something good about it. What can you? No,
yeah.
like be more specific, be more critical, be more honest. Like I say to my kid, like you always like you can never go wrong being honest and kind. You know,
Mhm.
you can't be just kind because you will be lying. You can't be just honest because you might,
A little
hurt
too honest.
someone's feeling.
Yeah.
You have to be kind too. So because you can say the same thing in completely different ways, right? Like we do that every time with the people we love, people around us, and they do it with us too. Like sometimes they say something to us that even though it's true, they said it in a way that kind of hurt us, and like
Mm.
like they can say we can say the same things if we're honest, but with empathy and say, oh, this thing I really liked, but maybe this part here could maybe be explored in another way, seeking this and this result. Instead of, oh, this is shit. They don't know what they're doing. They should have done this other thing. This is not like the same result can be accomplished, and depending on the way you say, the person will listen to you. But if you change the way you say, you're mean, as you said. You're not being just critical. You're being mean.
Mhm.
No one has to listen. Like they will ignore it, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I was saying, it's a sad thing that we as humans want to get amped up over people saying mean stuff. I'm trying to think
It's
of,
biological too, right?
yeah,
It's
no, totally. And it's
yeah,
constantly a fight against that part of our nature, but I think it's a fight
yeah.
worth having.
Oh, for sure.
Uh, and there's and people who revel in that kind of cruelty, I think it's worth just, like you were saying, blocking and moving on and not interacting with them.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I don't read certain blogs. Like I don't read 10-foot pole because I have read some of those reviews and I'm like, this guy has a really great critical eye, but you can tell that he has fun being mean, and I just don't want to read someone who does that, right? Like I don't that's a
That's
not
true. Yeah.
enjoyable to me. It makes me
I
kind of
do have to say I
uncomfortable.
learned a lot from as you said, he has a very good analytics eye, but he also has eye just for one type of adventure he likes.
Hmm.
Like for example, the Dream Thieves adventure we made, and he criticized it heavily, but it's for completely different kind of game that he plays. Uh,
Hmm.
Azag has a lot of shared narrative parts that for him this is nonsense in a way, right? It's not a D&D adventure, uh, but you do learn some things like not everything is completely bad. As you said, like, oh, this is shit. Yeah, there's some parts there from the way he does his critiques that I really don't like. but also there is this nudges of analytics guy and understanding of adventure game design, like old school indeed. He understands these parts. So
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean,
yeah,
like I said, I think he has a really good. I think he's really
I
smart.
don't
I
read
think
the
he has a really
comments
critical
though.
eye.
The
Yeah,
comments
no,
are
definitely don't read them.
terrible.
There's nothing redeeming there. But
Yeah.
it's like there was this other blogger that I'm trying to remember the name of it. I read them a little bit years ago. Are they just called the Angry DM maybe? But they would write these really long posts,
I
and
remember that. It's maybe during poor age
yeah,
was when he
probably.
was more prominent. Yeah.
And I remember reading some of those posts, and like the mechanical ideas that he was putting down in them were really fascinating. And I would read it a little bit, but eventually I was just like, yeah, this person delights in being mean to other people. And I just can't with somebody like that. It makes
Yeah.
me hugely uncomfortable. I don't want to support someone who's doing stuff like that. So I just
Yeah.
stopped reading their stuff and having anything to do with them. Because like I was saying, I think that's it's not good behavior, and it's definitely something that we should strive to not do in the community.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Uh, Now, Lex, I would like to go more into the personal part of the interview and talk about your experiences, your life, and etc. And I would like to ask first about maybe weird experiences you might have had with maybe you know out of body experiences. Have you ever seen yourself out of your body, or through either meditation or dreaming or anything like this?
Aside from the dream stuff that I was talking about earlier, I am very boring. I have had no weird experiences. I think that's one of the reasons why I like to write about weird and supernatural stuff as much as I do, and why I like to read like weird
Mm-hmm.
fiction and all those things. Because, yeah, I've never had any kind of supernatural experience. There was actually
Have you ever
times
had a
when
near-death experience or anything like
no,
this?
no, I'm
Okay.
far too. I drive like an old person. All right, I've
Yeah,
never been.
that's a wise way to drive. To be
No, it's
honest,
great.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I've never. You know who has a squeaky clean, spotless driving record? This guy never gotten a ticket. Not a thing. But yeah, I think there's a lot of that like I've been thinking about. I know people who've been like, oh, I've seen ghosts. And I'm just like, man, I wish I saw a ghost. I would love that. That would be so cool. There have been points where I've like found myself in an area that I think is like kind of spooky, and I'll be like, I'm just gonna hang out here for a little while because it would be lovely if something
Oh
happened,
yeah.
but nothing ever does. And then I'm like,
I've
ah,
called for it. Like, hey, if there is something here, show up, and nothing comes on.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
Maybe they're
There
shy.
was
Like they only appear if you don't want them to
I
appear.
think
Like if
that
you
might
want
be
them.
part of the trick.
Yeah.
My coworker, so we have this area where we store equipment that's like in this weird back in one of the buildings on campus that's like this weird back hallway area. And my coworker referred to it as being reminiscent of this thing from the internet that I'm blanking on the name of right now, but I think it was like the backways or something. It's like tied to Slender Man or whatever, but it's this idea that you have liminal spaces in sort of
Yes.
modern buildings where that are just creepy because they're liminal spaces. And there's a whole RPG, liminal horror, that's about that, right?
Yeah.
But what I always think is interesting when I think of that is I'm like, as someone who's very introverted and kind of just doesn't want to be bothered, I sort of don't find liminal spaces creepy. I actually find them extremely comforting because I'm like, oh, this weird back hallway that's super out of the way that no one ever shows up in. Yes, I will hang out there because I know I won't be bothered. It's actually more calming to me because I'm just like,
Yeah.
great, I know no one's going to be around, so it'll be nice and relaxing for me. Um, so as a horror
Yeah.
genre, I always am confused by that. I'm just like, that looks perfectly that weird old house in rural America that's all run down. I bet that's
Super
really nice.
relaxing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's probably like some raccoons or something. They're cute, right? I
Maybe
know.
you were the ghost. Maybe you
Yeah.
are the ghost.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm the ghost. That would
Yeah.
be, yeah, after I die, that's what I'll have to do is haunt those weird areas. And people will be like, "Oh, I'm so scared." And I'm like, "Yeah, you better run. I want to be alone. Go away."
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're making too much noise. Yeah, go away.
Yeah, totally.
And what about, have you ever had any experience with meditation, or you talked about lucid dreaming, and but have you ever, did you try for that? Did you use some kind of technique to get into that, or just something that happened with you? Because some people like study ways to, do it as a practice, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything specific. I remember back when I was doing it, it was just about spending a lot of willpower trying to recognize that when you're in a dream, and then doing that enough times so that then you can act when you're in the
So,
dream.
so it's
But
not like a pre-work. It's something that happens while you are dreaming.
that for me, yes. I mean, maybe there
Mhm.
are ways to do it ahead of time, and I mean, I didn't like study it. I just was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I can figure out how to do this on my own. I should do this. It'd be fun. But it's also kind of like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, you and continue
You
to
lose
do
it.
it,
Yeah.
you lose it. Because that's why it's not something that's easy for me to do anymore. But at that point in my life, like 10, 15 years ago, I was very good at it.
And
Yeah.
have you ever had any experience with states of altered awareness, even through deep meditation or psychedelics or anything?
Unfortunately not. Like I said, I'm very boring. I don't
Yeah.
when I was in
Okay.
high school, I remember my friend who was like really into pot was like, "Hey, you know, do you wanna get high? Like, I'll smoke you up, and you can get high with me, and I'll make sure you have like a good trip or whatever." And I was like, "Nah, I'm not really interested. I got nothing against it. Like, you can do whatever
Do
you
you
want. I'm not
drink?
judging you." No, I don't drink. I've never been drunk, never been
Okay.
high, nothing. I'm just,
Yeah.
it's one
Well.
of those things that I look at it. I'm just like, I don't, I'm not against it, but I just don't have any desire
Yeah.
to be in an
Yeah.
altered state.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I just,
Yeah.
I'm a very boring straight edge person is how I like to describe myself.
Well, that's great. And if you feel good about it, that's what matters, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's never
And
bothered me, and it doesn't bother my friends. So I'm like, cool. Like
yeah,
they drink, and
it
I'm just like,
shouldn't,
that's
right?
fine. I
They
don't.
don't.
Yeah,
We don't have anything to do with this. So yeah.
yeah. I know
Yeah.
there are some people. I have read many articles. I have luckily not experienced it, but
Mm.
I've read many articles about people who are like, "Oh, I feel really bad because I don't drink anymore, but then I go out and socialize with my friends and they drink, and then there's pressure that they put on me to also drink." And
No,
then
my
I
only concern is like we get stupid and you still like totally normal, and you feel like, oh, these stupid guys drunk around me, and that's the only problem I would see, right? Like you get, oh, like, oh, they're doing those, saying they love me again and this kind of stuff, drunk people do,
I guess,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm always consider myself very lucky that I've always had friends who have never judged me in that way.
Yeah.
So I've never felt any pressure to do those things. So I
Yeah.
haven't because I haven't felt any
That's
desire
yeah,
to.
that's good
Which
because
yeah,
it's probably
I
there is. Yeah.
no, totally. I'm sure that's not the case for most people, and I'm really happy that that's been my experience in life. But I also think it's funny that people will be like, "Oh, I'm so nervous doing this thing because I need to like loosen up or whatever." And I am also mentally, my brain chemistry is very strange because I will not, if it is someone that I don't know, I do not care what they think. So like I am actually very good at public speaking because I can get on stage and speak in front of a bunch of people, and I do not care if I screw up or make a fool of myself because unless that audience are all people I know, and then I'm very nervous. But if it's just a crowd of like 100 or 200 random ass people, I will be like, whatever. I'll just say the thing that I'm supposed to say. I don't care. Maybe I missed a line. It doesn't matter to me. Because the thing that matters to me are the opinions of the people that are important to me. And that is often the only thing that matters. So when I was releasing one of my games, I got some negative comments on it on I think Reddit because it's Reddit, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
uh, I remember seeing those negative comments, and a couple of them were really nasty. And I was just like, and I remember responding, being like, "Yeah, I don't really see where you're coming from, and I don't agree, but whatever, you can have your opinion." And that was like the only comment I made on it, because and I don't even remember exactly what they were because I just didn't care because I don't know those people. So it doesn't really matter to me what they think about my work. And I think that's interesting because cuts, it's helpful, but then it also cuts the other way where there are then people I'm good friends with or an audience that I really like, and I get really nervous about sharing stuff with them. So initially was hesitant about sharing a lot of stuff about my Kickstarter with people that I know because I was just like, what if they don't like it? But I care about their opinion. I don't want them to not like it. So then
Yeah.
I get freaked out.
It's
Those are the
weird.
things I get freaked out about.
Yeah. It's weird. And for me, yeah, of course we shouldn't care about the opinion of others, but I don't know. For me, like performance and stuff, like we do like streaming, it's hard, because especially if I was running a game, like no, I can't. It's hard, and then I always get super nervous, and I don't know why, but it's like I don't know, performance anxiety in a way. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, totally.
Talk about a little bit, maybe religion and spirituality, or do you have, or even philosophy? Do you have anything for yourself that maybe helps you, to navigate life and understanding yourself, or helps you in during tough times and making tough decisions?
I was raised agnostic. I think it was because my mom's parents never were religious, so she just didn't carry any of that over to raising her kids. And my dad was raised, I think, Roman Catholic, and he had to go to like the Catholic school where like the nuns would like hit your knuckles with rulers and stuff. And he had just such a bad experience with that when he was having kids, he was like, "No, we're just not going to church. We're not dealing with any of this."
Yeah.
So I remember when I was younger, one of my friends whose family was very religious, they invited us to like a Christmas mass. And I don't remember what age I was. Maybe I was like 8 or something. But I remember thinking about like, I don't think I've gone to church before ever. And then we went to the mass, and I was like, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, oh, you just take that prayer book and you like sing the hymn. And I'm like, this is weird and stupid. And I just felt I felt like it was the whole religious experience was super strange to me because I had never experienced it as a kid. And nothing against religion or the people who practice. I think that's totally fine, but it's never something that I've had any specific interest in. I think my guiding principle is always just trying to be kind to other people and be thoughtful of them. And I definitely do not always like follow that principle properly, kind of like how I assume when someone's religious and they, slip up when you're Catholic and you sin, and then you have to go and repent and be like, these are my sins, this is what I've done, Father forgive me, or however confessionals work. I've seen a lot of movies, all right. This
Yeah.
is my only experience with that, but yeah, with me it's just like I try to be thoughtful, I try to be kind because I think those are the most important things. And then I
And
often
what do you
screw
mean
up.
by being thoughtful?
I try
Yeah.
to think about what the other person's wants and needs are, and then how I'm going to react to them is going to keep that sort of thing in mind. It's actually weirdly also something I think about with RPGs a lot because I think about NPCs and the goals that they have. And then it's like, oh, how do you run this NPC? Well, if this situation happens in this game, what is the NPC's goal? Okay, well, how would this situation affect their desire to complete their goal, and then that's the best way to run them. But yeah, in real life, I'm always just like, okay, this person, I want to talk to them about this thing, and I know that they don't, you know, like these aspects of it. Like, okay, try and give you an example. I will often have game nights at my house, and I will invite certain people. And I know some of those people don't like some of the other people, or they like certain games, they don't like other games. So I have like multiple lists that I have written down. So it's like, okay, so Kathleen likes these kind of games, but not these kind of games. So if I'm gonna have a game night where we're playing board games, she is part of the board game list, and then I text her about stuff. But I'm not going to bother her if I'm just doing an RPG night because I know she won't enjoy that. And I had this conversation with my friend Dan like late last year where I texted him and I was like, hey, I'm running a one shot, a Cairn one shot for this scenario. I know you like RPGs a lot. You should play. Are you free? What day of the week are you free this week? And he was very hesitant to respond. And then he finally did, and he was like, "Listen, man, I don't mean to be a jerk, but like, I I like RPGs, but I just don't like OSR stuff. I know you're really into it. And I didn't want to say anything, but it just like the whole high lethality thing. It just doesn't work for me. I don't like it." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't have asked you if I knew that. That's I don't want to ask you to do this thing that you don't enjoy because that's my
Yeah.
whole thing. I want to make sure that you're comfortable in the situation that I'm inviting you to be in because that's my first thought, right? So
Yeah.
so I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. I'm just going to change what lists you're on now. So I'll invite you to the other things, but not this thing." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." Well, I didn't say that I had him on a list specifically for certain things because that would sound weird. But but that is what I did is I changed which list he was on. Um, so yeah, it's just trying to
Yeah.
think about the needs of others as often as possible. And like I said, I totally screw up in this
Yeah,
all the
everybody
time.
does. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. But where did you say you learned this from? From someone? From from a
I
place?
like
From some?
I can't identify a specific thing, but I'd like to say my parents because I think they just raised me to think that, but I can't pinpoint a specific conversation that I
Yeah,
ever had with either of
yeah,
my
of
parents,
course.
right?
But
But
if you
yeah,
identify this from your parents, that's great.
yeah,
That's good parenting, I would say. Yeah,
yeah. No,
in a
they're
way.
great.
Yeah.
They were good. I'm really happy with them. They were great parents.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's a hard thing to find. I would say. I don't know.
No, that's true. I one of the other things is I think about with my life a lot is I constantly consider how lucky I am because like I'm a white guy. I'm a straight white guy. That comes with some privileges, right? I'm in America. I'm from a middle class family. I've had I make enough money to get by, right? And like I own a home, which is God, that's difficult
Oh
in this
yeah.
day and age, right? And I have my health and I have good friends, and I think that this community that I'm part of, I think are really great. I have a lot of good friends in that community. I have a lot of good friends in real life that I hang out with a lot, and I constantly, whenever I'm feeling bad or like things are looking down, I always think, actually, I have it pretty good. It's pretty. There's a lot of things to be thankful for in life.
Yeah. For sure. Do you have any kind of, a gratitude practice? Do you think about this stuff? Do you like take notes or anything like this? To
I don't, but I feel like that would be really cool, and I should do something like that because I think that that would be up my alley, totally.
yeah, I don't know. One thing that I do is every day, at the end of the day, I write three things that went my way during the day. It's not three
Oh,
things
that's
that I'm
good.
grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
because we can, spend the whole day like, oh, I'm grateful, yeah, for as you said, for being born here, for having this, for having food. So it's just three things that went your way. Like, oh, my wife gave me, a piece of chocolate, or I was hanging with my son and he just gave me a hug, or and we're playing something. Just like, I don't know, small things. Oh, this guy in the work said I had a cool tennis shoes or something, and
Oh,
made me
yeah,
smile.
that's nice. It's always
Yeah.
good to have cool tennis shoes and to be complimented on them. I had one of my coworkers who no longer works at my place of work. They found a really sweet job elsewhere and left. But I remember running into them one time and them just being like, "Oh, your shirt is so cool, and the way you pair it with that jacket is great." And I was like, "Thanks. That's such a nice thing to say."
Yeah.
Wow. So it's always good to compliment people. I mean, don't just
Oh yeah.
compliment them for the sake of doing it, right? Like, think about something that's actually cool about them. When you see it, point it out. But it's
Yeah.
always good to do that. I got a gift recently for a late Christmas gift from my friend who I mentioned earlier, who I always watch B movies with and like weird movies with. I got it. They sent it in the mail, pretty much unprompted, but it was a movie poster for Spooky Encounters 2. And it's not just that it's a movie poster for a poster I like and that we watched together and that we both really enjoyed, but it's also like the original one and it's in uh, Chinese, right? So they went
Oh.
to some Chinese website and found the 1989 poster for that movie in Chinese
Wow.
and had it shipped to the States to me. And I just got it in the mail and I got it out and like when I took it out, I could tell like how thin the paper was because it was like really old and it had like
Yeah.
some dirt around the edges because of like how long it had been sitting in storage and stuff. And I immediately framed it because it was very delicate and
Yeah.
put it up. And I just texted my friend and I was like, this is such a thoughtful gift for like all the reasons that I just
Kind
listed.
and thoughtful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just
Awesome.
appreciate that so much. It means so much to me. It really like it really made my day. And then I baked some cookies and sent them cookies because I'm like, here's a thing that I think you will like.
Awesome. Yeah. Cookies are great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, Lex, I would like to make some of questions that are a little more silly and whimsical to get
Hmm.
to know things you like, your kind of personality and kind of stuff. And if you could choose anything to dream about, like if you could choose the dreams you have, what would you dream about?
Flying dreams are great. I love flying dreams. I'm really into those.
What would you do? Like where would you fly to? What are you doing like in a flying dream?
Oh, I would fly, you know, those natural vistas over forests. I love that. Through those big puffy
Mm.
clouds. Good stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's landscapes are great. I really love naturalistic landscapes. I think they're really cool. I live in New England. I really love the New England coastline, which a lot of people, I mean, it's not good if you like swimming, right? Because the Atlantic Ocean is very cold, especially when you get up to New England. It's not really a fun place to swim unless it's like 1 or 2 months out of the year. But that image of like the waves like crashing against like a rocky crag or something, uh with like overcast or it's snowy during the winter, like the classic Stephen King small town vibe, right?
Yeah.
I actually think is beautiful and wonderful and I really like that and I like those bird's eye views of that. So that's the kind of thing that I would enjoy, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And if you could live in any fictional setting, world, universe, from games, from movies, from books, where would you live in and why?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. There's so many good fictional universes. There's so
And who
many.
would you be in those universe? What would you
Yeah,
be doing there?
gosh. Oh my goodness. I mean, I really like the different fictional worlds that are basically like the real world, but there's something silly or supernatural about them. So like the Ghostbusters thing is
Like
great because you
Ghostbusters,
have
yeah.
like ghosts are real, but they're not like horrifying and real. They're like it like that franchise treats them as if they are pests and the Ghostbusters are just like bug killers, right? So you have
Yeah.
that cool supernatural element, but it's not like you're not fearing for your life because of it. That same token, like something like Scott Pilgrim, right? I think is great because it's
Yeah.
basically the real world, but like, yes, psychic powers exist if you're vegan. Okay, so there's that. Someone could
And
punch a hole through the moon.
and things kind of work like video games in a way, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
People explode into coins. That's funny. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I love that. One of the kinds of media that I always stay away from that like well, I don't always stay away from it. Sometimes it's really fun. But the like post-apocalyptic or I shouldn't say post-apocalyptic, apocalyptic media or dystopian media, I'm always like very hesitant about because if the media itself is talking about how society's bad or it's like grinding, it's not that I can't appreciate media like that, especially when it's well done. I really I can look at
Hmm.
that work of art and be like, this is a well-made work of art. But I don't want to revisit a work of art like that. Like universes that I love are like silly and fun. I think I mentioned Time Bandits earlier. That's great because it's like, oh, the universe exists, but it's actually full of holes. There's all these little weird time portals. I don't know if you've seen Time Bandits, but you should because it's amazing. There's all these weird little time portals, and and God is real, but he's like kind of just a businessman, and there's this silliness to everything, and it's very absurd. Or what's another good franchise that I was thinking of? Big
Well,
Trouble in Little China. Have you seen that movie?
yes. But what
Yes.
world would you choose to live in?
Well, which one would be
Yeah.
tough? I mean, I think that that world of the hmm,
Or
yeah,
imagine in one of them. I know it's hard to pick one, but
it is hard to pick one. There's so many good
like
ones.
one
I'm gonna
to live for a month. I don't know, and you
yeah.
can return. So it doesn't have to be all this pressure. I don't know.
All this yeah, no. I mean, I think the world of Big Trouble in Little China, yes, because you've got it's the real world, but is magic real? Yeah, it's totally real. It's you just kind of have to like you have to step outside of the ordinary and look
The
for
liminal
it.
spaces, yeah,
Yes, the liminal spaces. It's that cool thing where you have because in the real world, the disappointing thing about the real world is everything's ordinary, but then if you try to step out of the ordinary, you kind of just get nothing or boring things. It's just like, oh, does magic really exist? I'll look into that. It's like, well, no, not really. I mean, not in the way you're thinking of, right?
yeah,
It's more that like you can study these things and they can be fascinating, but there's nothing real about them in any kind of concrete sense. And yeah, I love those fictional worlds like Big Trouble in Little China, where it's if you want to have that average life, sure you can have it, but if you want to step outside into this world of adventure and magic and mysticism, it's there. You can do
yeah.
it. Yeah. So
Awesome. Yeah.
that's my thing. That's what I'll go with.
Okay. And if you could choose to have a superpower, what superpower would you choose to have, and what would be the first thing you would do with that?
Oh, I mean, okay, going back to flight. Flight is really fun. That's why flying dreams are great because it's a great
Yeah.
superpower. It's very
Yeah.
much a superpower about freedom and the ability to go anywhere and go like
Yeah. That's
whenever
why
you
a lot
want.
of people choose superpower, teleportation, and invisibility.
Yeah.
That's the one people always one of those three are the most popular. Yeah.
I also think that telekinesis is very cool because it's kind of a
Yeah.
more visually interesting power, like the things you can do with it. You can sort of disassemble something in midair and it just like looks
Yeah.
really neat. Yeah, I would definitely like if I had a superpower like that, I would like because I'm really into older technology and technology in general, I would like take stuff apart and like float it in front of me and get that like perfect view of all the pieces and like see how they all fit together.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. Uh yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
flight
Yeah.
flight or telekinesis, I think, are my two
Yeah.
things, my big ones.
And if you're strong enough telekinesis, you can fly too. So
That's
Like
true. So
just
yes,
one
just
sound. Yes.
really good at telekinesis is my
Yeah.
superpower of choice. Yes.
And if you could take any weird thing, any fantasy thing or science fiction thing, and make it real in our world, what would you choose to make it real, and why? And this can be a location, a faction, a power source, an equipment, anything like this.
I mean, the easy and too general answer is just magic. Like, let's just make magic real. I just want magic to exist because it's cool and I want it to be there. Like, even if it works the same way that it works in, like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
how would magic
freaking,
work, in this
yeah.
world for you?
If you have to study in a dusty tome, that's fine. Or even the Vancian style of magic, where it's like you have to go out of your way to find a spell, and then you have to study it, and you have to get it into your head, and then when you cast it, it goes out of your head, and then you have to study it again. That would be fun. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of if I have a better answer than that. Like a specific thing from something. Hmm. There's a lot of good options.
Yeah, I don't know. The question was if you had something that was something that you really liked, and you immediately thought about it. But if you just magic can work too. And the thing that I always think about this magic would be another thing to, I don't know, imbalance, right? Because some people would be able to do it, some people would not, and that is kind of, yeah,
That's true.
it's
That's true.
dangerous in a way.
I
Yeah,
I do always dislike stories where it's like if you're born with the ability to use magic, you can use it, but if you're not born with it, you can't. And I'm like, no,
yeah.
I really like the like this is a thing that you get
You can
because
study,
you
or you
study
can access in
because
some way. Yeah.
yeah, because it's an art that you learn and you can perfect it as a craft. To do the supernatural as a craft, I think is very appealing to me, partly
Yeah.
because I create art. So I'm like, oh yeah, well, if that was an art that I could
Yeah.
work on, I would work on it, and it would be like the idea of if
And like
like
art, there can be someone that was maybe has some talent for this kind of thing,
yeah,
and but like everybody can learn. Of
hmm
course, there is some one or two people that will be really good at this part of the craft or this part of the craft, but the craft in the spell craft would be something that you can learn. Like you can go to a workshop and learn, right, in some
yeah,
way.
it would be like I'm good at doing weird fiction writing, so it's like, well, you could do abjuration pretty well, but I'm not good at necromancy because I can't write noir stories at
Yeah,
all. Yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
but that I could if read the books or I studied under somebody who was good at doing that, I could perfect doing it that other way. And yeah, I mean that's what I like uh about art in general is that anyone can do it. You just need to be willing to put in the time and effort. And there's different levels of being good at doing it too,
oh
which I
yeah,
think is also really important. Like, I know how to use Photoshop to do some layout stuff. I'm not a great artist visually, but I can do
mm-hmm.
certain things and I really like how they look, right? Like, I was talking about how I did that photocopy effect on the Spectral Exterminators PDF, and I think it came out like perfectly for that specific thing. So it would be like, oh yeah, I'm really good at casting Autoluke's Irresistible Dance. I'm not good at casting a lot of those other spells, but I'm very good at that one. And
Yeah.
I think that's a fun thing, Break it down that way.
Yes, it is. It's kind of Rincewind from Terry Pratchett's Discworld that has this one spell stored in his mind, and it's always about to cast it. It's well, and Lex, finally, our last question is: do you remember the last time you felt really happy and just grateful for being here and being alive? And if you do, can you share with us when was that and what is that you were doing?
The most recent time I actually have already shared. It was when I got that poster. I got it in the
Oh
mail,
yeah,
and I just thought this is so kind and nice and meaningful to me. And it made my whole week. It was just great.
yeah.
So, yeah, no, most recently, yeah, it was that.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Well, That was it, Lex. Thank you so much for being here. Do you have any last message for the weirdos out there that are listening to this?
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. You should go listen to all the other ones if you heard this and you haven't listened to the other ones, because there's a lot. Listen, even I haven't listened to all of the other ones. Diogo puts out so many, but the conversations are always super interesting. So check those out.
Like
also,
this one.
Yeah, check out small creators, support their work if you can. And that can be as simple as just talking them up or giving them money, whatever you can do. It's always worth it.
Share the work, share that this is cool, and just share that. That helps so much.
Because someone who is doing creative stuff, that will mean so much to them that you should always try to share the stuff that they do. And yeah, that's my main thing.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Lex Mandrake. And can you take us out saying the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Keep it weird, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.